This is the fifth episode of Workplace Trends India, and we have many eminent speakers on this platform. Today, I would like to welcome on this platform Calvin Gilboe. Calvin, we can't see you right now. Can you just put his video on? Yes. Welcome, Calvin.
Hey, good morning from the U.S.
So, Calvin, we are seeing a lot of people are attending, and I think joining in next, I think 1 or 2 minutes we should wait. Before that, I would like to thank our outreach partner, IV Network Capital, and industry partner, Nickmar. Those who are supporting us to reach right audience for Workplace Trends. And Kevin, before you start, I would like to give you a little brief about the audience today. We have many architects, many designers joining from different part of the country and from different countries as well. And we have a lot of manufacturers, people those who are working in manufacturing industries and retail, as well as the real estate sector. And we are here looking for your design thinking, your new innovations about this new normal of life. And as you know, that word is going towards a new kind of normal. And in this COVID situation, we are really looking for your views and thinking. And before Kevin, we move to our technical discussion. We would like to ask you before 3M about your journey, like where you were working and what was your experience before 3M.
Yeah, hey, thank you. And again, good morning, everybody. I wish all the attendees here are safe and well in these strange times that we live in today. Tushar, for your question, so I've been working in the design world now for about 18 years, and a good half of that was at a previous company, Whirlpool, was in the appliance world. And I'd say if you look at from the beginning to where I am today, the one big theme across it was design for capability, designing the capability of design itself. So we've been building design studios, especially at 3M in the last almost 10 years now, opening a lot of design centers in Asia. That was my role when I was based in Japan. And now here I am back in the US, and we're working on the entire international network.
Great, Kelvin. And Kelvin, it is, I read about you on LinkedIn and a lot of other places. You have won a lot of international awards. And so I think my audience will be very happy to know about your design thinking and what all products you have developed and what all awards you have won. It will be great to know about that.
Yeah, I mean, the awards are a lot of fun, and I want to say first and foremost, they're always a team effort. I mean, that's why I very specifically say, leading the teams in the process of it. We've had some really cool ones, like the Idea Gold Award that our team got for the Post-it Plus app. This was actually one of the first times we created an app that was designed around the process of using the Post-it note. And, for us, that was a really new thing to take on. And we had to invent a lot of stuff along the way and new partnerships, new collaborations. So then when we got the award for that, it was just an awesome recognition that, it's like, hey, we can do it. And, so since that point, there's actually been a big growth in the UX design capability within our team.
Yeah, I think Red Dot, Idea Gold, Good Design, GD USA, as many awards I can read in your CV. I think it's great to interact with you, Kevin. And before we jump to our the conversation, I want to just know that what do you feel right now in this new world? Like everything is shut, everything is stopped, and nothing is moving. So what do you feel like? How your life is changed as a designer?
Well, I feel that it's just so much more important than it ever was to have relationships and connections and work with people, now through very digital means. I'll tell you what, just the time spent in building relationships around the world, within the team, with partners and customers, it's just even more critical, now. So, I look at it as, in one way it's challenging because, we don't have the benefit of a face-to-face approach and that, but on the other side, it's also rewarding to just see what we can all do together just working kind of through this means.
Yeah. So, Kevin, there is a saying, in India, the sale is everywhere. Sale is a steel manufacturing government plant. So, every pin to, a small pin to an aeroplane, there is a sale in the life. So, in my views, I think 3M is everywhere. From a small tape to, sticky to anything, you see on a staircase, everywhere is 3M. How it motivate you to develop new products, and what is the energy behind it like?
To build on your comment there, it really is cool to be involved with a company where it's true. I mean, just look around you, you're very, very likely, I'd say dead certain, to see a product that has 3M in it. On an airplane, I remember not too long ago, before this whole thing started, when we were still traveling, I'm sitting in an airplane seat and I look up and I see some tape, and it was a repair tape that was there, a temporary repair for 3M. It had, I'm thinking the plane's being held together by 3M. So yeah, it's first of all, it's special to work in that kind of environment, and then as far as how do we get inspired and everything, it really starts with the opportunity to really make a difference with people. I think you'll see with our company, our core message is all about improving lives. So, we start at a really basic level with empathy on, what can we do to help things be better?
I think you rightly said that improving lives is, the key line which 3M follow. And I personally feel like, I have a small daughter, like a 2 years daughter, like the kind of products she's, around, most of the products, like, some 3M tape or some 3M, so many innovation has been done by 3M. So I think personally, I as a kind of workplace strategist, or I work in a workplace environment. What is the culture in 3M which help you guys to develop these small products, which is like so much involved in human lives, as you rightly said, the improving lives. Okay. But there is, I think, a philosophy of a company which help you develop, so many products or service lines. So, what is exactly the line behind 3M's the innovation word?
Yeah, so I think that one thing that's really special about the company in that way is the technology platform. So it's empathy is critical, but you have to bring the right level of game when it comes to science, and so in that way we've got a tremendous amount of capability around a huge range of material science platforms, and that allows us to just start at a very basic level in solving problems. It also creates opportunity for inspiration, where we see opportunities to create new chemistries, new materials that do things that have never been done before. Then we can bring that into building an actual solution for something. And when I talk to, when I go through the content later today, I'll show, what that looks like,
Great, Kelvin. So how are you adapting your work style and spaces given the challenges of this COVID situation? Can you just brief about this?
Well, it's been interesting because, again, I used to be based in Japan, living there, and then working all across Asia. So I was in India many times, and China and Korea, etc., Southeast Asia. So I got really used to working like this, and the sort of nomadic, digital nomads lifestyle. So in a way, it's a bit like I'm going back to what I've been doing for a while. But I think, one thing that we are adapting more to is, frankly, just simplification. I think that, all of us do well to try to declutter as much as possible with whatever we're trying to get done. And, focus on the relationships, focus on, what can we do that has a meaningful impact, and then just go after that as a networked team like this. And in a way, that's refreshing because, we're kind of making our lives easier in a way.
Yeah, great. Calvin, there is a huge hype globally that, how the workplaces will be for future, how the work environment will be for the future. Everybody has some a bit of to say that, this will change, that will change. You as 3M, what do you think that are the most important changes happening to the work? Can you just give your little thoughts on that?
Yeah, I it's a great question. I think there's one thing that's really clear, which is that we really shift from an emphasis on a physical presence to a digital presence. So, oftentimes, our participation in a workflow can be, all in the same room and everybody's kind of working in that sort of hive model. But, that just doesn't work anymore in this setting. So, we have to kind of re-engineer our own personality and interaction with our work, with the rest of the working group and the folks that we collaborate with. So that physical to digital shift is a big change. I think for some more than others. And I think another piece is around, an emphasis on flow, an emphasis on moving processes along, not really looking for, say, static examples of any particular thing, any kind of a design. We want to keep things moving, because the static doesn't so matter anymore. There's nothing to look at when we're all sitting kind of in isolation.
Yep. So would like to cover any kind of future of work, how we'll be working, any products which you guys have developed recently. Could you like to present us something?
Well, it's not a launch party, but one thing that's really cool on this is that we've already been very well positioned as a company with a lot of solutions that are relevant, and so being completely maxed out in production for masks and taking that to another level. It's just really good that we've already got a lot of great solutions. On the other hand, we're also taking a look at how do we take our products and our thought processes and adapt them to the needs of things like social distancing and just the new urban landscape. And so in that way, it's kind of a fresh look at products that we already have.
Would like to show something to us, Kevin?
Well, certainly, yeah. I came prepared to share a lot of stuff on material science design and also some thoughts on the future. So shall I go ahead and share the screen?
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I promise this is not a 3M product presentation. This is going to be a bit about, my perspective, where I think things are going, but we're going to set things up here with a bit of a backstory on, what is 3M all about. So we did cover some of this in the intro questions here. Really, this is a company where, curiosity is essential to how we work and how we think about things. And the landscape of the type of work that we do is huge. So as you were pointing out earlier, Tushar, we're close to products anywhere in the world. If you look around, you're going to see either a device that 3M products are embedded in, or as you go traveling down the road, you'll see examples of where we're coming to life. It's really special to be engaged with that kind of landscape. So how it all comes together, we touched on it very quickly. We have a huge range of technology platforms. This is kind of a superpower, if you will, in the company, where we have the ability to invent something if it doesn't exist. I mean, at a pretty fundamental level. So now shifting more to a design perspective, one of the things that you could think about is materials have a life of their own. They have a potential to really convey meaning. And I was recently watching a video from Frank Gehry. It was a master class where he's talking about how he was inspired when he was early in his career by looking at a statue that was designed in like 500 BC. It was an ancient work of art. And he said he was moved to tears because of how that artist had used materials to convey meaning throughout time. And I think that's inspiring when we think about materials, because our materials have a lot of capability if we look at them from the perspective of a designer. And that's a big part of what we do, is we investigate what might be just a simple material from a very fresh perspective. And so to give you some examples here, we look at interesting ways where light can be transmitted in totally unexpected ways to create beautiful effects. We can look at reflectivity, we can look at how light can play in a very different way, and we'll prototype things that have never existed before to try it out. So some of the examples you see here, we're actually taking a material which is originally used in traffic safety or construction safety vests and pushing the envelope of what's possible to find something beautiful in all of that. Or we'll look at materials which are used in consumer electronics and explore the potential that they've got for depth, for really unexpected qualities. And so in that way, you were asking Tushar earlier about, the process of inspiration and how we think. We like to start with the materials themselves. Take another example, if we look at the space of surface, in this way, we have a really strong depth in this space. So if we're talking about different ways to create effects, whether it could be very smooth or rough textures, certain qualities of a surface, all of these are part of our toolbox that we can use for inspiration. And with that, we can start to create really unexpected things here. So if we're looking at a material which is really a perfect dead-on representation of wood, looks absolutely fantastic, and yet it's not that, and we can do very unexpected things with it. We start to enable greater freedom for designers to be creative with the product. And so, really a big part of what we're working on is all about collaboration. We as a design group, I think if I put ourselves in comparison to the design teams that you'll see at a large consumer electronics company or a car company, those designers are focused on creating a finished experience for their customers that builds the brand. In our case, we're much more focused on enabling the creativity of other designers. So in that way, I want to have an open invitation to work together so that we can really find that right connection between different materials and the challenges that they're facing. Now, back on the workspaces topic, on this, we started off with the first question on my overall career path. I've been involved with a lot of fundamental architecture, if you will, in building out design capability. Now at two different companies, I am very, very proud of the progress that we've made. So if you take a look at this example here, here we have a design center which is in effect kind of carved out of the architecture of the building, to create a space which is designed for collaboration, a space that will help to celebrate and identify design within the organization, and really be something that we can use as a home, for an entire function. I've been doing a lot of that. When I moved out to Asia, we opened 3 new design centers in 3 years. First was in Japan, which is what you see here. Then that was followed by India, and then China after that. And these design centers, we put a lot of thought into an appropriately sized space that really is engineered around the idea of collaboration. To me, that really is the secret sauce in all of this, is an effective team that is working together in a collaborative way, that has the space to do it, has the right tools to do it, and really kind of creates the right environment for creativity. Now, in India, I'm showing you here some examples of the space that we have opened in 2018 in Bangalore. We built this really all around customer engagement. And so the idea of collaboration is really just embedded in the whole architecture of it. We have the tools on site, we have the team there, we have a very reconfigurable space that we can use to pivot to whatever topic that we want to focus on. And so in that way, we've spent a lot of time thinking about the needs of workspaces. So, Tushar, you were asking me to come here and talk today about, where this is all going. And we put together some thoughts on that. I'll say that, first of all, to be very humble, we're not a trend house. I would love to be doing this as a full-time job if, and I said perhaps another life, but we're drawing from our experience here. We have a lot of internal experience, as I mentioned, but we also have a lot of experience working with customers in the commercial building sector, retail space, could be infrastructure, and so on. And so let me take you through 5 different thoughts on the future of the workspaces. So first, if we think about what's timeless, one of the first things that's timeless about the direction here is the design for human scale. If we're talking about a workspace, we first have to recognize that it's for people, and that people work and exist in 3 dimensions. And so the scale and the proportion of that space really does influence how effectively that it's used. Also, comfort matters. I mean, honestly, the ergonomics, if people are uncomfortable, if they're not in a way that they can effectively reach the tools that they need, then their productivity and their overall resilience is going to drop. And I think we've seen that over time, this has really accelerated with the rise of more reconfigurable workstations, standing desks. Sometimes you have the treadmill desk too, but ergonomics is finding a way into it. And then also being attentive to air, to light, to sound, and bringing that into the space and really considering it. It's an idea that goes back, quite some time. If you go back to the age of the modernists, and they're thinking about even the healthful qualities of air and light, that's still to this day a very critical factor. Now, what may change is that there's more attention placed to the psychological needs too. And so we think about, what drives anxiety, what drives the, the sense of safety. How do we just attend to that? Because ignoring it's not going to work anymore. We also think about the safety features within a workspace. I think have typically been thought of as pretty general. So if you want, anti-slip coatings on the floor, you want signage, etc. The kinds of things it's basically the same one-size-fits-all solution across the board, regardless of the different people. But I think this becomes much more highly customized to the user. We start thinking about safety features at a user level. And then on top of that, I think that we're going to see an intersection here between the consumer electronics world and automotive world, which we're heavily engaged in that as well, where we see a lot of empathic UIs. These are user interfaces that are speaking in an emotive term to the user. So it's not just pressing buttons, but it's actually having a dialogue about how do you feel? I'm too hot right now. I'm not really comfortable right now. It's too bright. Being able to communicate in that way and have the environment respond to you, I think is where we see another step forward. So quick comment on social distancing, and I know we want to make a time out here for some thoughts on this. In the same discussion about design for human scale, we start to see that social distancing enters that conversation. And I'm just proposing here a bit of a way to think about it here is that on one side, you can look at it as a physical space. We're going to create features to create separation. But I think even more fundamentally, there's a wayfinding challenge underneath all of it. How do people find their way? How do they navigate a space? How does a designer think about the information that those people need to know to find their way comfortably and not feel, say, a sense of exclusion? Sort of the default in all of this is that people will instinctively organize themselves. It's very culture-led. Some cultures have a larger social distance than others. And to really address to the physical needs of people. But I think where we go from here is that we have a more mindful approach to thinking about how do people organize and how do people find their way through a space according to whatever purpose they have there. And so, yeah, this is a very big topic. And Tushar, I know that we've been talking for a little while, and this is definitely an interesting one here. So maybe we could pause here for some Q&A.
Yeah. So Kevin, like it is interesting that, design for human scale. Can you just stop your share, please? We can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stop the share.
So I think it's a very interesting perspective on workspace design that, what you're designing for human scale. I think we are getting very interesting questions from audience, and I think we will take a few of them on screen in some time. But, looking at the scenario right now, what do you think about this? Like, as you rightly said, that 3M is developing a lot of social distancing, products and, for the airports and railways. Or I think you guys are the first one who are working on the social distancing, products. So what do you think, like, will it be a long-term survival, that the kind of discussions are happening in the world that you sit 6 feet apart, or maybe like, you standing, 2 meters apart from each other, or that, do you think like, in country like India, which is like so dense, so, populated, how will these, highly populated area will work? What is your thought process on that?
Well, I certainly don't have a final solution on all those challenges in mind. I mean, they're the kinds of things that I think realistically we wrestle with it over time, and we become mindful of things. I think that if anything, there's a mindfulness dimension that's been added to many aspects of life, and so in that way, it's not black and white. It's really adding another dimension. So in some settings, physical separation is just not going to be possible for some reasons. Okay, so with that being the case, what kinds of things should we be aware of? Is it more about the sanitation, masks, etc.? Do we have just another level of dialogue about it and awareness? So yeah, it's definitely not black and white in that respect.
But do you have any products to show that how airports will be functioning, how, that the highly populated places will be working, how we will be maintaining this social distancing in toilet and, kind of washrooms, or like, maybe an office area? Do you have any plan for that? I'm seeing a lot of, products are coming in the market, but can you just give little design thinking behind that? What kind of wall products 3M has developed?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually could do a screen share on that. Thank you for the topic. That is a space that we are heavily involved in right now. Our teams across Asia are working with various industry sectors. It could be airport authorities, it could be a quick service restaurant, it could be commercial buildings. And we're working in a way where we interactively understand what their needs are and help to create a sensible approach. We think about, all of the things that come to life in the journey of a passenger at an airport, for example. And again, I want to go back to that idea of wayfinding, because it's not about just sticking signs on everything and saying, well, stand here, do this, do that. It's really about like, what's the appropriate balance here between their state of mind and how they want to navigate through a space, and how do we help them be more comfortable and how more effective, but also attend to the real, issues that might be there for, say, a health concern.
Yeah. So would you like to show some products for airports, or something which you have designed and which you will be helping us to go through this situation?
Well, yeah. Since you ask, I'm happy to just do a quick screen share here on this type of work, and let me go ahead and tee it up. All right, so look, again, like I said, I promise it's not a 3M product demo, but what you're seeing literally is real time, like what we are internally discussing and talking about here. So let's talk about airports for a minute. If you think about the space of an airport, as I covered here, there's this new logic that we need to think about. And the bottom line is we want to create a cleaner and safer experience. So, we as designers, we lead with empathy. We want to understand things from the perspective of the user, of the real stakeholders that live within these spaces. So there's a lot of topics that we have to start thinking about. What will happen? What will be different in those types of scenarios? And so, this is right off the sketchboard right now. We're thinking about where do those products come into play? How do we create different solutions that are going to help create more clarity on what people should be doing within a space? And ultimately help to just reinforce a sense of positive engagement with a space that they might be in. So there's plenty of work like that going on right now across the board.
But do you think how long will it be possible to keep this happening? Because like if you go to India, Delhi airport, it's like full of people. Like you see long queues and all the benches are full of people. How people will manage? Like, what do you think as a designer, as a design thinking perspective? What do you think? Will it be sustaining for long?
Well, it's like any organic system. Things come into balance over time. That's my belief. I think that right now we're trying to understand. We're trying to account for very new criteria. And so as we get more used to that, it just becomes more natural. So I think that the challenges that we see with a lot of queuing, and by the way, I've standed in some lines myself here, just like have to get there, super early because the store is completely out of stuff. So you're out there in the cold, in line, eventually, a couple of weeks after that, it went away. I mean, the system adjusted, it compensated. And you see there's designed elements in all of that help with the wayfinding. They help to just sort of remind people and teach them about what the new expectations are. And then things just work better. It's, in a way, another analogy that I like to think of is it's similar to traffic safety. It's the way that, this is an area that my team and I are engaged in quite a bit. In that way, if we don't have good guidance for people on the road, we have chaos. And so, you want to create the right kind of signage, the right kind of thought processes to help create better flow, if you will.
So not a presentation, product presentation. Would you like to show something on signage innovation?
Yeah, well, certainly. Yeah. If you were talking about the traffic safety type products, yes. I mean, because my next slide here, again, just to maybe link back to where we were before, go back to the screen share.
There's like too much is coming on social media, Google, everything. But the people, those who are designing, those who are behind it, if we hear from their perspective, it would be great.
So here's where I was going with the traffic safety thing. I mean, this is an example. We do a lot of work in India around variable messaging. So this is it's not just a static sign. In a way, this is similar to the app project I mentioned that won the IDEA Gold Award, where we're really talking about a UX design challenge here. And so, getting engaged with, what's relevant and having empathy for a specific area, a specific site. There's a lot of design thinking that's needed to find the right solution in all of that. So that we're presenting information in an appropriate way, in a way that's clear and understandable, and by the way, also builds the brand of the city. We want to create, something that is going to be, helping to create a sense of confidence, and I think that's where we'll see some of the social distancing work go as well, as it gets tied into the brand of a space. So shall we go on? I've got the other four thoughts on the future. We can go there next, or do you want to do some more Q&A?
Yeah, please carry on, please.
Okay. All right. So number 2, timeless consideration, design for sustainability. Definitely in the space of my career, this has been, very, very prevalent. And so let's just go through the quick stuff. Reduction of carbon footprint, increase of non-renewable energy use, making buildings use less energy, use resources more effectively. The picture here is an example from one of our design centers where we used a lot of reclaimed wood in the interior of it. So just drawing from the local community and giving it a second life within the space. So in that way, we want to reduce landfill waste. We want to drive sort of a better, more complete perspective on how resources are used. And then, third, metrics and certification also play a role in this space. So what I think changes is that we go, if we think about this idea of density, often the idea of how many people can we get into a space and measuring the effectiveness of a space in terms of energy use, in terms of number of occupants. Well, I think that logic's going to have to shift a little bit because occupants are going to be coming in and out, and there'll be more of, say, a flow model versus okay, what's the, say, energy use per person within a space. I also think, my guess is that they'll be, with a lot of the larger spaces that are out there, they'll be repurposed into, a set of smaller spaces. We've already seen that trend underway for a little while, but I think it'll start to accelerate where we just don't have the same kinds of needs for huge, all-inclusive workspaces anymore. And I also think that what we'll see happening is around the economics of the world and where that's going. There's really going to be less, of a case for completely new construction. It's really going to start going more towards how do we upgrade and renovate spaces effectively, add smart systems, make things more effective, and just make better use of the spaces that we have right now in a more efficient way. And so in this way, we've got a ton of solutions in that space that help to create renovations. And this is something I share it because the design team is heavily engaged with it. So finishes that can really create fantastic surfaces that are really, really true to life in the kinds of materials that they're replicating. In terms of fast renovation, in terms of helping to redesign a space, even do it overnight, we have that ability with the kinds of products that we make. Number 3 is the space around design for collaboration. So I think timeless challenges in this space is that workspaces have classically been a way to build organizational identity. They're also a way to, reinforce particular hierarchies. So the idea of, the big shop where you've got lots of people out on the floor and, the boss up there taking a look at everybody. That's kind of the, a typical model of a workspace. If it's a collaborative space, you're going to need a lot of vertical surfaces so that people can visualize the same information together and they can interact with it in a fluid way. And you're going to want to have on-site shared equipment that are going to help facilitate a concentrated hive approach. So I think these are the classical, timeless design challenges within collaboration. Where I think this is going to go is that, management, I think you're seeing this now, management approaches and tools are modernizing. As we move to more of a digital representation, a digital team model, the idea that everybody needs to be in the same place at the same time or they're not working, that mindset of attendance shifts more into a 24-hour workflow concept. And to make that work, you need to build a lot of trust. You need to have management approaches that really create the right kind of relationship bonds through a digital access to sustain that kind of thing. So the collaboration tools themselves, instead of being a vertical surface, is more about a collaboration, a digital tool. And there's plenty of examples of online whiteboarding. Here we are using this system with Zoom to really stay connected and interact. And then the equipment piece, I think interestingly, it used to be that the office was the place where you would have that shared equipment that everybody used, or workstations. And I see us accelerating the shift to a bring your own model for equipment. I'm certainly doing that here. Many of my team have the same approach here, where it really isn't about like sharing the same stuff on site. It's really about just pulling from whatever we need when we need it to be effective. In fact, I just put this out here just as a thought starter, but I think honestly the one dimension of workspaces, if you're thinking from say an automotive context, if we shift gears over to the work we do in that space, they're very much about the idea of case, so connected and autonomous and shared and electrified. That sums up the future of mobility. And so in that way, the shared space, the sort of rolling office, the rolling workspace, there's a lot of car designers spending time on that right now. And so maybe the next, say, workspace isn't really a physical structure at all. I've got a couple more here. Tusha, are we still good? Do you want to go to the last two, or any other Q&A?
Kevin, you should complete your, there's 5, concepts, and then we will go to Q&A. I will take
Awesome.
2 people on the screen, and we will have a conversation that time.
Awesome. All right. So next we've got the whole topic of design for safety and security. So, you think about a space, a building. Fundamentally, it's always been about providing shelter, and you add to that it provides, a bit more of a security, confidentiality of the work, it controls access. Having built a lot of design centers, that's always a topic, because we don't want just anybody coming in and, having a look at what we're doing. And of course, you want to safeguard employees, from any kind of challenges, any kind of hazards as well. So, those are fundamental challenges with any or timeless design challenges with this space. What I think will change, though, is that more people will become digital nomads, and this is a world that I'm very familiar with here. The working from home model, it becomes work from anywhere, and the idea of confidentiality, security, those are things that I think increasingly become more of a digital topic anyway. We're not storing a lot of stuff, say, in physical form anymore. We're putting it in a digital ecosystem. And in that way, that large office to protect a lot of things it's just a different question now. I think, as things move to more of a decentralized model, we're not going to need the same, say, level of features from a workspace. So those big all-inclusive offices may be less relevant. And I think, in fact, building access itself might become more of a restricted and exclusive thing, where, if you're going to an office or you're going to a workspace, no matter what it is, you're going to go there with a purpose. It's not going there just to hang out and, kind of live in the office. It's really going there for a purpose, to get in and get out. And in that way, there might be a greater growth of sort of a curbside mindset. We're seeing this with restaurants where, instead of dining in, they'd have curbside service. I would think the same is true for workspaces, where you're not even going in the building anymore. And then last, the fifth timeless challenge here is around design for brand and culture. So a workspace is in itself a statement about the brand of an organization. Architecture, I think, is very well known that, a great building can really define a city. It can, create a lot of pride and an identity for people. And the same is true for workspaces. And we've certainly, designed with that in mind as we've been building workspaces at 3M. And it's part of that, like the idea of on-site amenities. Some offices have a gym, some offices have free food, some offices have, free coffee, etc. All of that stuff, has been kind of thought of as, well, that's an increasingly relevant part of how do we create brand for a workspace. I think where it goes, though, is that, honestly, that flagship office, I think we're seeing a shift here in the value of that. The perceived value of having that big all-inclusive space is lesser when people are more mobile. We're working more in an individual way. In fact, the reason for us physical space is really purpose-driven versus to just hanging out and sort of having sort of a full ecosystem in one particular spot. So in that way, large spaces that have, sort of huge capacity and are designed to create a large assembly of people, I wonder if, we're going to see that really move away. So here's the summary. I thought it would be helpful to just put it all together on one page with a couple of thoughts for each of these. And Tushar, I'll pause here and back to you.
Kevin, it's a great perspective you have given, design for human scale, design for sustainability, branding. I think you have covered everything, but I think people are having many questions, many questions. So I'm taking few of the people on the screen, Kevin, and we have a lot of questions which I can't take on the screen, but I would like to take the question. I'm just managing, few people over here. But before that, Kevin, one design student has asked one very interesting question, which I want to pass on to you. Lavanya, she's a product design student from India. How do you think that we can contribute in this situation for a pandemic as a design student or as a designer? How can we give something back to the society? So I think she want to.
Well, yeah, thank you for the question. I would say that designers have a real gift when it comes to empathy and being able to help characterize a challenge, whatever it might be, and help bring others together in understanding that challenge so that it can be better solved. That's always a critical thing that designers can add, I think, at really any level. So I would start, I start with that. And I think using the tools that exist today to create communities, to assemble the right skill sets to go after a challenge. Once you've defined the challenge, then you can start to solve it. That's another thing that designers can certainly take the lead on as well.
Yeah, so I have two more guests over here in the window. Mr. Vistap, can you just open your camera or your microphone? We have promoted you. Yes, Vistap is a very eminent architect in NCR, and he's working pan-India, and he has very interesting questions. So I thought I should invite him to talk to you directly. Welcome, Vistap.
Hello.
Please unmute yourself. Please.
Kevin, hi. I had what I call a multi-million-dollar question. Is 3M going to develop a kind of film that's going to be antimicrobial? Because I think there's nothing bigger and nothing more relevant and important in today's times. I mean, if there could be that one magic film that really covered a lot of surfaces and made them antimicrobial, I think you'd be doing a big service to humanity.
Thank you for the question. I wonder if there's no exact magic film. I'll put it that way. But what I would say is that a lot of our products today have qualities that we are right now investigating along those lines to correctly position it. I will say when we talk about the idea of antimicrobial, we immediately get into a very heavily regulated space, and that regulation shifts by country. So we need to make sure that the definitions that we use are precise and supportable and appropriate. So I think that, I'll put it this way. Your question is the same way that we think about this, and we see that same opportunity. Our products, like some of the things that I showed earlier, like Dynoc, or some of our architectural films, they are highly cleanable films, and so in this way we can provide surfaces which are, providing a really, really great wood finish or other types of finish, but it doesn't have the same say, issues that you would have with cleaning an actual real surface. We have that benefits of film built into it, you know. So in that way, we have some things already, but I think we're certainly working on the same lane that you're talking about.
Vistav, you're mute. Vistav, you're mute.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
You can be part of the conversation. Might be few people question you also. Okay, so Geeta Sharma, Kevin, next question is from Geeta Sharma. Geeta, would you like to unmute yourself?
Hi Tushar and Kevin, this is Geeta Sharma from 3M Middle East Africa. I'm based in Dubai. I'm going to ask my son because he was watching you and he would ask the questions. So it's not me, my son, Abhi, who's just going to join University of Toronto. So go ahead, Abhi.
Yeah, hi. I just had a question regarding the sustainability of materials. I'm pretty interested in that going into the to university. And so I was just like, I'm curious as to the cost effectiveness of approaching sustainability. I know that current methods are relatively cheaper compared to approaching sustainable methods in regards to materials. And regarding this pandemic, how does that affect the future of our approach to materials?
Thank you for the question. I would say, you know, it's really essential to think about sustainability as a total system, a total ecosystem. So I give you an example. In the space where if you're running a large commercial property and say it's a hotel, and you know, that hotel, you have a brand to keep in up going, right? So you know, that the spaces will, you know, over time need to be refreshed, need to be kept up to date. And you could take the route of throwing out a lot of doors and interior structure to accomplish that. And, you know, in doing so, use, you know, quote unquote, natural materials. But the problem is you're creating a ton of landfill waste. You're creating a ton of, you know, mess and making it, frankly, in an unsustainable approach, if you will. We in some ways, in that type of scenario, you could approach it with architectural films, which for, you know, a very fast turnaround approach, kind of almost overnight, you can transform the look of an interior, and you're using a film approach and you're preserving, you know, what was already there. So in that way, I think sustainability has to be thought of as a total ecosystem. It's not just a straight up material cost, one for one. I think that's often, you know, been, say, an overly narrow way to think about that challenge.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep, and good luck to you too, as well, with your career.
So I have promoted few of the attendees to panelists. They can switch on their camera, at least they can come on the screen. But I have another question is coming from Priyas. Priyas, can you just switch on your camera and you can unmute yourself? Priyas HK. He's a startup. Yes. Hi, Priyas. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi guys.
Hello, Priyash.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not Priyash. This is my son's name. I'm just because he was attending his school on Zoom. I'm Harsh Kamble. I'm working for a startup. So my question was like, does your workspace really matter a lot in terms of the ambience that you create on your creativity?
I think it absolutely does. I think spaces influence, you know, us as people. You know, like I was saying, the design for human scale, you know, people exist in three-dimensional space. So, you know, there's a relationship there. We're affected by the surroundings if we're feeling too confined or maybe overexposed or not well lit. All of those things affect our ability to think, and then that results in the, you know, the work that we do. So no doubt. You know, now that I'm working here from my house, you know, I've been spending a lot of time to kind of get everything in the right, you know, position to be effective. You know, and I get comments from my coworkers about this. They're like, "Oh, well, your background, it looks perfect," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, we had to think about it. That's designing it."
Vista, would you like to add something? Thank you, Kevin. Vista, would you like to add something?
I'd like to add one thing to you, Priyansh, is that I think, architects have been typically associated as being aesthetic people who are taking care of the aesthetics. I think that's going to remain. But I think one more important thing is we've got to become activists now. We've got to start acting in the right way, taking up causes. As Kevin was saying, landfill is a major cause. Carbon footprints is a major cause. So I think if we all were to pick up a couple of causes, we'd be doing good to our profession and good to the earth in general.
Kevin, you have another panelist to help you to handle this large Q&A because a lot of questions are coming. Thank you to Priyas. Thank you very much. Okay, so next question is from Ashish Chaudhary. Ashish Chaudhary, are you in the room?
Yeah, so my question to Kevin and to all the panelists here is that, brands use the workplaces as a serious place to reinforce and remind their employees about their culture, their values, and stuff like that. So it's like a very important element. So the entire office is actually designed around reinforcing that bit. Now that work from home is going to be the new norm and the new normal, how do you think as designers we can take that brand value back to the work from home environment? Is that possible, or how do we kind of mitigate this or address this challenge?
I think it's a good question, Kevin.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great question, because that's been very central to the work we've been doing, at either my previous company or 3M, where we've created what we call brand labs. These are, physical instances where you walk into the room and you can see the full scope of that brand value system and the touch points and really get immersed in it. And, it's powerful because, like we were just talking about, you sit in a space that affects how you think, and you want to get people into that mindset of what's relevant for that brand story. There's no say black and white answer here. I think that people that are involved in a heavy brand kind of development mindset need to be taking that home. They need to be bringing that into the environment that they're working in and work it into the expressions that they make digitally. That's that shift from a physical to a digital expression. So we have to start getting used to communicating about brand in more of a digital form. But yeah, there's really no substitute for that power of a space. So I think what we're going to be also doing is finding ways to create other ways to get together around a brand experience concept. It's not black and white where we're never going to get together again. It's just going to be in a different form. I think we'll have to recognize that this is a challenge that we all have to work together on.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Here.
Good question.
We have a next question to Anmol Gupta. Anmol, would you like to come on the screen? Yeah.
Hello.
Good morning. So I'm a product design student studying in Portugal right now. And my question after seeing your presentation is, you talked about the purpose-driven people, but there's also a certain pleasure that we derive when we are hanging out with our colleagues or in the canteen or having that interaction or talking to someone at the water station. So how does that translate into what you're trying to do now and bring the pleasure? Because if you start doing everything with a purpose, you are skipping on the small details of life. So what are you?
I hear you. So what we've been doing in the design team at 3M is we've been creating those hangouts, and they're informal. I mean, so it's interesting because you get to see people eating their lunch from a different angle now. Everybody's on their separate camera, but what I found is we can do this digitally if we just make the space for it. So in a sense, when you're designing a workspace, you can create a kitchen area, you can create a couch area, a living room area. There's a physical facility that helps things to happen. Well, you got to do the same thing digitally too. So it's like, if we're going to create hangout spaces digitally, people can walk up and join, be there if they just want to talk to somebody. That's maybe a little different, but it's kind of the same practice if we think about it from a big picture point of view. So I hear you. You're right. We don't want to lose it where we're not talking to each other anymore in an informal way. And here we are actually doing it now. So.
Vista, would you like to add something?
Tushar, I'd like to say that, there's this big misnomer called social distancing. Actually, we should call it physical distancing, because social distancing really means that you're keeping people apart. The norm's only 2 meters apart. I mean, you could be having a glass in between. So I think the answer is that not everything is going to be, physically distanced. You're still going to be in the vicinity, but you're going to keep a bit of, distance from each other. So you're going to be socially connected. And that's the important thing.
Great. Thank you, Vista. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Anmol, coming over here on the show. Now we have a next question from Naman Nawal. He's a startup and he would like to ask something. Naman, over to you.
Hi, thank you. What I wanted to ask was, so I'm assisting a prop tech startup in fundraising, and what they basically do is they help in understanding the workspaces in offices. So how much will be how your previous workspaces was actually utilized by you? That data will help in creating your workspaces.
Well, certainly, yeah. I think there's already a lot of practice built up over time in how we use a space, and that can create a bit of an inventory on the things that need to happen or maybe could be changed moving forward. It's interesting because I think the shift to digital footprint has already been underway, but now here we're seeing a bit of a hockey stick approach where it's now we shift a lot more rapidly, and so we kind of have to ask that question, well, what are the things that we were really doing more on site, and what's the digital equivalent, and is it really necessary, or maybe we can try something different now.
Okay, different as in so like creating, so within the same office space you can create additional, because of the work from home becoming a regular part of the work culture now, so you can create more office desks within the same space. Is that what you mean?
Well, no, I was really saying that, I had a sort of static model of using a workspace where everybody came together and worked in one spot. And there was already a process underway to extend that digitally, so there'd be people working from home maybe one day every now and then, or they'd be doing calls in the evening or in the morning, and it would be kind of a digital extension on the workplace. And I think that's going now to where, really like it is much more of a flow model where we're working anywhere, anytime we need to, and we're integrating that more into our life. And so in that way, we ask the question, well, what are the things we really need? Because, in some cases at the office, there's things that we just don't need anymore. It's just not relevant.
Yeah, thank you, Naman. Thank you very much for coming over here. We have next question to, I think, Kevin, I'll give you a little 1 minute of relax. So one question is coming to, architects, and Siddhant, you can ask your question.
Actually, my question goes to all architects here. Now, ventilation is one important aspect which is required for healthy environment and workspaces. Now, so far we have seen that good ventilation systems requires a different design, and it involves architects to be there at the first stage itself. Now with this situation where ventilation is, where we are talking about 100% recirculation airs, guidelines are coming up, it's getting developed, and ventilation standards are getting developed for this. How much focus will be there from the architects on this front?
Thank you, Siddhant. Thank you. Vista, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, so I think ventilation is a very big issue. There have been guidelines issued by ISHRE in early April, which are now telling all consultants on the new norms of designing of air conditioning. I think there's great need to look into the quality of the indoor air that's being mixed into the environment. That's a very important thing. And you do need to have HEPA filters to ensure particulate matter of a certain size beyond 1 micron does not enter. So I think all these things are very much going on, and yes, it's very much part of an architect's job and will continue to be so.
Thank you, Vista. Thank you, Siddhant. Siddhant, you can unmute yourself. Mute yourself. Thank you.
Thanks.
Apeksha Kore is another question. Apeksha, can you unmute yourself?
I have questions for Kevin. Kevin, that we are also working on researches on workspaces and all. You spoke very well about some finishes that we need to look for. I have question very specific and towards the issue that we are facing right now. What kind of finishes do you suggest us for workspaces specifically, like the finishes on top of workstation or kind of solutions? Number one. Number two, you spoke about adaptive reuse, and we all here want to adopt adaptive reuse in our practices. How do we approach towards that? Third thing is regarding disposal of material that we considered in the current scenario of working towards the green scenario of sustainable scenario. Fourth is
Apeksha, I think question was quite long. Kevin, could you understand that?
The second parts, it was hard to hear, to be honest. I think the connection is not so good, but the first question.
Please? Can I break it just simpler? Number one, about the finishes to be preferred in workspaces today, post COVID-19, the kind of adaptive reuse that we could look forward to. Also, the material that we would prefer, the disposal strategy for the same, and what kind of life is okay for material in virus case, like the life of virus on material that everybody is talking these days, on plastic, on kind of different materials, paper, cardboard, and all. How much to rely on this information? What would you suggest?
Well, it sounds like you're looking for a lot of detail on our solutions, and I'm happy if you want to just look me up on LinkedIn, and we can take it offline, and I can get you the right information to go through all those details. I'd hate to just give you kind of a high level thing. It sounds like you're looking for some specifics on that. So that's no problem. If you just want to reach out, we'll go ahead and connect.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. And we have only 4-5 minutes to, end of the session before we end this session. We have Shakti Kumar Singh. Shakti, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, my question is regarding since we are moving from the digital we are moving from the physical to digital platform. So what would be the impact of social as well as the environmental for all the changes within the companies or within the organization level or within the society, so that the designer can think about the social as well as the economical for any kind of the development? Because why this question is right to me, because 3M is always inventing so many products. So I worked in the 3M in Middle East, and I was heading to the automotive division. We have developed one product called the PPS. This is the very closed system. But after using this product, they are producing so many wastage, like the plastic wastage. And this is the way that I am asking, what is the impact if you are going from the physical to digital platform? So what is the impact for the socially as well as for the environment?
Well, that's a really rich question. There's a lot of things to unpack there, but I think the high level is that I really don't think of things as a black and white where one or the other. I think if we're adding a social dimension or a digital dimension to any product, in that way, it's an extension. It builds out a bigger ecosystem, and it requires a bigger design sensibility in thinking about how everything works together. So like in that way, we've got, a lot of skill sets that have to come into play to make something an effective solution across the digital and the physical sides of things as well.
Great. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you asking this question. I have last question from audience, Minakshi Taneja. Minakshi, would you like to unmute yourself?
Hi, Tushar. Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
The question that I'd like to ask is that, in today's world, obviously work from home is definitely a priority, but for places where that's not possible, say if you were traveling at an airport or through an airline, or you were, say, at a hotel living in a rented room there, what steps can one look at as solutions provided by 3M for sanitization of surfaces, for disinfection of surfaces? Is there anything that you're thinking of on those lines? You see, airports and airplanes are extremely unhygienic spaces, not just from the air point of view, but also from the surfaces that you're being exposed to when you're touching all the time. Is there any thought being put towards, desanitization and cleanliness and disinfection rather of these surfaces, whether they are the toilet blocks of the, offices, or they're airports, or, hotels, or even cafeterias in an office, let's say?
Yep. Absolutely. The question is absolutely. We're working on it. We're thinking about it. We have already a large business which is focusing on commercial building cleaning, and there's many products that are in that space, whether it's floor care or disinfection and so on. And then I think we're quite well known these days for the masks and respirator solutions for air quality. And so, we're there. We're working on it. This is a big focus for us. And I think it's a great challenge because we can bring a lot of fundamental material science to the solution set that, it's not about reconfiguring something else. It's about building it from the ground up. And we're there.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Minakshi, for coming on the show. Kevin, I think we are on absolutely on time, 6:15. But I have one very interesting question for you. As Kevin, would you like to, give some design thinking tips to people, those who are like designers or architects are here in such a stressful time? How designers should behave? What should be their thought process right now?
Well, I'll tell you, that's a huge one. But I remember what makes us different. Remember what designers are different and what we're really good at. And I think that empathy, that ability to empathize and understand and characterize human experience is fundamental. And I think the relationship, and I really like the comment made earlier about advocacy and shifting more to a proactive stance. Absolutely, that's spot on.
Yeah, I think, Vista, would you like to say something on this? Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, well, I just said, I think, more and more one has to take up a cause that's beyond, what you've been trained for till now. I think there's no time that's more appropriate than today. And I think if you look around, there are a lot of causes and a lot of things that you can actually be an activist on and actually take up. So that's my point. And I think we all have to find our mojo and our calling in something beyond what we've been trained for.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you very much, Vista, coming and joining us for this panel. Guys, we have a very interesting session tomorrow, Innovation at the Time of Pandemic. We have a very, interesting people. Upali is coming from US, from HKS, and Gaurav Chopra, and Mr. From CEO of Turner and Construction Company. And day after Saturday, we have a blockbuster session with Naveen Jindal for leading in the crisis. And I look forward to see you all again on both the sessions and hosting you on this workplace trends. And please keep following us on LinkedIn and LinkedIn page. We are updating all videos, all PPTs and notes on LinkedIn. And you will be updated with our workplace trends activities daily basis. Thank you for all coming on this platform. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you.